Hey, it's Evelyn, and it's story time. I am going to tell you how I flunked out of college my sophomore year of undergrad. Let's go. Okay, first of all, I obviously got through college and went on to grad school and became a professor, which I've been for 20 years. So there was a happy ending to the story. But it happened, and I think it's really important to, especially for educators, professors, um, and folks, that have these quote unquote prestigious jobs to talk about some of the hardships that they had or some of the fails, that we had along the way. I know several professors who flunked out of school at some point or got an F in classes and, all sorts of typical things happened to us as with some of our students. And it benefit us, I think, to remember that. Um, because I think we tend to forget it after so many years and become really impatient with our students who are, going through various struggles. So let me tell you about this. I was a first generation college student, meaning that I didn't have anyone in my family that had graduated from college to my knowledge up until that point. So I knew nothing about college except for what I saw on TV. And, that all of that stuff like in reality TV about, dorm life and partying and, classes here and there, not the central thing, but, going to some classes. That's what I thought college was like too. And it was a different ball game. I went from high school to a 4-year university. And as I reflect back on that, and also having taught at a 2-year college for most of my teaching career, I think that I would have benefited from starting at a 2-year college instead of going to a 4-year university right off the bat. And actually, research has shown that students who start at 2-year colleges and then go on to 4-year universities do better academically. Anyway, I didn't have any, one to refer to or get advice from within my close family circle. So I had just gone into college with the same assumptions that anyone would have based on whatever you saw depicted on TV. So I immediately joined clubs, engaged in the same way that I did in high school. Joined all the clubs that sounded good. I was in everything. Became the president of Black Student Union, secretary later on. I was in the mentorship program. I became an assistant in the university housing office. I was in student government. I remember I was in some meetings and I was the only freshman there. Like no, no other freshmen were in these groups that I was a part of. So I was over involved in all of these clubs and organizations. And I was also partying a lot. I was going out a lot with friends, having a great old time, right? And missing a lot of classes. I'd missed a lot of classes. And so I'd always had some struggle in math and science classes in particular. And so getting behind in those classes was very detrimental. I also struggled in my English class, which I have always been, I thought, a pretty good writer. But I think college English, especially the um, intro college English, can be challenging in the way that things are structured in this very like finite structure that teachers tend to have the 5 paragraph papers and very specific topics. So you can't veer too much off that topic. So I struggled with that and actually didn't do great in my first English classes, which I was in advanced literature and English in high school. So, it started out with just kind of getting a C, kind of struggling along, and then those C's quickly turned into D's and in one class an F later on. And so at the university that I was attending, you had 2 semesters of academic probation before you were academically dismissed. And academic probation was marked by a GPA that was less than a 2.0. So I had 1 semester already that where my GPA had fallen below a 2.0. And so we came to that next semester, and what do you know? My GPA fell below a 2.0 again, which is where, I ended up being academically dismissed. There were a couple of things that were fortunate about that situation, the timing of that happening. One was that it was the spring semester. And so that means that it was a semester that started in January. And at the end of that semester, it was May. And so we had summer break for 3 months after that. And so it gave me a chance. Everyone was going home. So it wasn't like, me being gone would be that noticeable because it was summer break. Everybody was going home. And it also gave me a chance to get my life together by going home that summer. So I went home, back to my hometown, and I was like, "I this can't be my story. I have to resolve this. I have to get this together." Like, I was a pretty good student in high school. I know that I can do college. Like, I know that I can do this. And so I looked on the website of my university. I'm like, "There has to be some way I can get back in or write a letter or something." And sure enough, there was a process of reinstatement. It was called a reinstatement letter. And so I was like, "I'm gonna write this letter." And I wrote it, I was very honest and I, didn't know anything about college coming in, was very anxious and eager to join things and become a part of, the community. And that I really cared a lot about my education and I think I deserve a second chance, And alhamdulillah, they reinstated me. They reinstated me. I think I heard back maybe 2 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later that I was reinstated. I was able to come back that next semester. So I actually didn't miss a beat at all. I was able to go back right after the summer. But in the meantime, this is something I think is important. When I was at home contemplating life, I was like, even if I don't go back to the university, I'm going to school, I'm going to finish my education. I enrolled in the college in my town. I set up a dorm. I set up a food plan. I was arranging for classes at that school. I was ready to go. So even if I wouldn't have gotten back into the university, I would have had another option at the college in my town, which wasn't a bad college, actually. So, I had a secondary plan and I just didn't need to utilize it in the end because I was able to go back to my university. So really incredible the way that all of that worked out. So ultimately, I did not miss a beat. Like I said, I still graduated undergrad in 4 years, which is the standard time to complete undergraduate school. And I went on to grad school right after that at the same university and successfully got through that program and became a professor. I started teaching actually when I was in my graduate program. I started teaching when I was 24 years old, when I was finishing my master's degree. So that's the story, y'all. That is the story. I flunked out, but I did not give up. I made, plan B and I believed in myself and I did my research and, I was able to move forward and ultimately, go on to have a good career in education. So hopefully that inspires someone and gives you hope and also disputes this idea that professors are all intelligent and have had perfect academic lives and things like that because it just isn't true for most of us. We also face struggles and things like that, but it's how you recover. It's how you recover. It's what you do in the meantime, that ends up mattering the most. So that's about it for this life lesson. I will talk to y'all again soon. Like, share, subscribe. Peace.